I'm Luke White, a second-generation Jamaican-British property investor here in the UK, and you're listening to Property, Purpose and People, a podcast that is specifically and intentionally created and curated for the Windrush generation and their descendants. On today's episode, we have one half of Rent to Rent Success, Nicky Taylor. Now, Stephanie has been really influential in my own property journey, and she has so much to teach us about how we can manage our properties in a more effective way. For those of you who might feel overwhelmed by the possibility of managing properties, this episode is going to help you overcome some of those challenges and step into the opportunity that awaits. I hope you enjoy the episode. Peace. Anyone who doesn't know you, give your elevator pitch. Give your 60-second elevator pitch of how you would like to describe yourself.
Yeah, well, we help people get started in property who think they can't. And our passion really is inspiring non-traditional investors that, yes, you can get started in property, start with cash flow and end with assets.
Fantastic. So well rehearsed there. I love it. That's perfect.
Yeah. I've got that's our main thing that we do, but and that's how we know each other.
Mm-hmm.
But another way to put it is that we're owners of an award-winning property management business that's also known as Rent to Rent Success, and with my sister we're also property investors, and we've got a multi-million-pound property portfolio, blocks of flats, HMOs and commercial property. And we started Rent to Rent Success, as I say, to help non-traditional investors get started in property, and we've inspired thousands of people to get started. We're authors of the #1 best-selling book, Rent to Rent Success, hosts of the top 1.5% podcast, Rent to Rent Success. I was winner of Inspirational Person of the Year recently, and we've been featured on the BBC, The Telegraph, Business Insiders, and many others. But it all boils down to that passion that ethical property investment is open to anyone who wants it.
Fantastic. And to let the audience in a little bit, like, I think the ethical side of things is what initially attracted me to Rent Success and to you and Nicky. It was really that approach, was you kind of openly talk about that. How important is that to you, the ethical side, and where did that kind of angle to wanting to do business, where did that come from?
Well, it comes from a few different sources, but as a Black woman and you as a Black man, we know that our ancestors didn't have the opportunities that we have. In a way, they were property and they weren't allowed to own property. And so the massive opportunity that we now have, and getting into property and finding that world and realizing what's open to all of us, it's just been totally mind-blowing to me. To think of all the years of struggle and just working in a job and trying to, go up the greasy pole and having some success in that, but not realizing that there's another option that's actually, in my opinion, much easier. Having a business and owning assets, in my opinion, is everything's got its pros and cons and hard bits and easy bits.
Yes.
But it's much more fun being in business than it is working long hours for set salary for somebody else. And so that's the backdrop to it. When I got into property, I was skeptical at first that it was a scam, especially because these strategies that we're talking about are ways you can get started with low money, but the way it attracts a certain type of person and a certain type of property trainer, where you just think, oh, this does not feel good, the way that these guys are talking about it. And that's when we actually decided to try it and bring that ethical approach to it and do it in a way where our granny is going to be proud of us and our business, and that we can feel proud of the properties and the work that we're doing. We wanted to share that with everybody else because we thought other people might be thinking that this is a scam as well. But yeah, absolutely you can. And it totally makes my day. I get so many messages from other women of color and Black people in general, just saying, oh, you really inspires me, because seeing you in mainly property is a sea of white faces. Nothing wrong, but I'm just saying I would like to see more of us owning property. And 32% of, in the UK, 64% of white European people own their own property, and only 32% of Black people. I would love to see that go higher.
Fantastic. Absolutely amazing. So what did you do before property?
Yeah, so I did a lot of things, Luke. I've been through every different, right before I went into property, I felt like I'd landed on my feet and had arrived in the promised land, because I was working in financial services as a contractor. And compared with some of the roles that I'd had before, it was so well paid. I was on this daily rate. I'd had to set up a limited company to do it. And I felt like I was quite the thing. And but previous to that, I've been in all sorts. I had my son, Alex, when I was 19, and I was very, there was a time when I was on benefits for a while. There was a time when I was on different part-time jobs while Alex was in younger school. I went back to university, and, you know, it was a struggle for a time there, but eventually foundations were in place, and I was able to move forward and do a little bit better, and got to the place where I was, in financial services, feeling like, I've arrived. But in the great scheme of things, I hadn't really arrived, but I felt good about it.
Fantastic. So what was the biggest, I guess, the biggest challenge or opportunity when you stepped from the corporate world into doing your own thing? Like, talk to us a bit about some people are listening right now and they're like, okay, maybe I could find some time to venture into this direction, into this property game. How can you prepare them for some of the obstacles or challenges they're going to face as they do that?
Yeah, well, first of all, there are ways you can do it where you can step out without stepping out. So you can still maintain your job. So you're still, I think the first challenge is to treat your job as a job. Put your time and energy into it. Go there, do the best you can do within that time frame. Be very strict about offering your energy and time to your job within that specific time frame. Outside of that time frame, offer yourself your own investment of your time and energy into yourself, your future, your family, whatever is important to you. Because it's so easy when you're confused, you're not sure about the framework, what should be happening. It's so easy to put all your energy into your job and say, I haven't got time, I haven't got energy, I'm spent after work. You need to claim your energy. You need to claim your time for yourself, as well as, I'm not saying don't do a good job when you go to work, but put some parameters around it. Too many people spend their whole life focusing on their work, putting their energy to their work. I had that wake up moment where it was, the bank will be absolutely fine without me, my mom won't. Although it might not be, in this case, it's my business won't, my future won't, unless I also put time, energy into myself and my business. So the first step is, if you're going to leave, at some point, you want to give yourself the opportunity to be able to have the option of working or not working and still making an income. Then while you are working, you need to also find some time and space to put some energy into creating something to make it happen.
So that in itself, for some people, they take their work home with them, and they think that, if I give more to it, then the boss is going to notice me. And but that's not necessarily the way it works. So that I think that's great advice. Just reclaiming your time is kind of the first step, kind of what you're saying, to be even find the time to put into something else.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you can still be found out for promotion, put yourself forward for things. There's the 20-80 principle. 20% of the things you do deliver 80% of the results. So you need to analyze, work out what's the 20% of thing. And also, most people are not focused when they're at work or when they're doing anything. So if you can focus, go in there and do some serious badass work, you should not need to be working 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
And if you want to create something outside of work, you have to discipline yourself to work the hours you choose. Now, for some people, you might be able to finish at 3 p.m. Other people might say they're going to finish early at 7 p.m. But whatever time you do it, however you roll it, or you might do 4 days a week, or long hours on the 4 days to make it to
Work,
full time, and take the 1 day back. But however you do it, you need to make some time to invest in yourself.
Fantastic. Okay, right. So now we've worked that out. We're more efficient with our time at work. We've etched out a few hours, maybe or a day. Let's say we've etched out a whole day where we can now focus on property, focus on our venture. What's the first step that we should take?
I think the first step is, where do you want to be in 5 years? Now, for some people, and what assets do you have to get there? Like, some people have already got the money that they need to be able to buy properties. Other people might be wanting to go into what we started off with, which is property management, where you're renting properties, renting them out again, and making anywhere between 500 and over £1,000 a month per property. So you don't need many of them. So you have to sort of envision your future in your mind, and then think, right, okay, how am I going to create this? Where are the gaps? What don't I know? What does my next step need to be? So whether you're, obviously the journey is going to be different if you're buying properties than if you're renting properties and renting them out again. So I think what we often want to do is ask somebody else, what should I do? What should I do? Before we know which direction we want to go in. Because other people can only help you. Nobody, when you know which direction you're going in, and nobody knows better than you what is the best direction for you. You are the expert on you, and we're all the expert on ourselves, but sometimes we defer that responsibility.
Now that's a major key right there, because mindset, and maybe some people think it's a bit of a buzzword, but here on the podcast, it's a big deal for us, mindset. And how I spend a lot of time, in fact, throughout most of my adult life, I've spent a lot of time in one form or another, mentoring or coaching or guiding or helping people in different ways. And one of the things that I always think about is, it's so hard. The hardest thing is to get someone to think differently, even if it's to think something good about themselves. Like, it's so hard. And I know both you and Nicky are, I think this is probably one of your superpowers. I think it's your ability to get people to just believe it's possible. For someone like me, or someone listening who does want to help people around them to believe in themselves, how do you begin to do that? How can you begin to move someone's mind to just say, like, as you said, you are the expert on you? Just that starting point is huge. Like, I don't want people to miss that. How do you help someone to just believe that you can trust yourself? You can trust what your intuition or your gut or your heart is telling you. How do you get someone to even just to trust themselves?
Yeah, it is a process. And what we can do as coaches, mentors, you are actually often guiding as well. But as coaches, you can just show someone their mind. So how part of doing that as a friend is to just be an empathetic listener. So imagine somebody's telling you they're in an abusive relationship. You know, a woman has come to you, a good friend of yours, and she's telling you all the things that this partner has been doing. You're getting really angry, right? You wanted to give her advice, or I would be getting angry and wanting to give her advice. You should leave him. You should do this. You should do that. But this person's not at that space.
No.
She has to know what's best for herself. She's the expert on her life. And right now, she has decided that her life is better with this person in it. But the one thing you can do is be an empathetic listener. So listen to the story. How does that make you feel? What would you like to do? How would you like to feel about that? What else could you do? And as you go through these questions and hear her without judgment, she begins to also see her mind through the questions that you're answering.
Asking.
Sorry, the questions that you're asking.
Mm.
And one of the things that I love about questions is questions are the keys to unlock your mind, and for us each individually to know ourselves, we have to get good at asking questions and answering questions. But what usually happens, because we're quite lazy, our minds are quite lazy, and we're also used to being very distracted. We've always got the phone that we can just go on a podcast, YouTube, social media, whatever. We haven't got to sit with ourselves, but it's good to have some time to sit with yourself and ask yourself questions and either write down the answers or just think about the answers. So some of the questions I love, I did a podcast episode recently, which was about the 2 most important questions. And because the problem for most of us is when you ask yourself a question like, where do I want to be in 5 years? If you've never asked yourself that before, really hard question for most people to answer. They don't know what to say. But when you put some parameters on it, suddenly people get answers straight away. And so the question was, if you knew you only had a year to live, what would you want to stop doing? And what if you knew you only had a year to live, what would you want to start doing? If you knew you had a year to live, what would feel really important for you to do? Because these all give you clues to the life that you want to create, because you've got to uncover it, reveal it, and then once you can see it, you can start moving towards it. And these are great questions to ask to help somebody else to see that they know, they have the answer. So our final point is that when people say to you, what should I do?
Yes.
About, should I leave this job? Should I, we talked about earlier about that relationship thing. Should I leave this job? You can just ask it back. Should you leave this job? Why should you or why shouldn't you? What's the worst that could happen? If you knew that if you left this job, or if you stayed in this job, it would be a fantastic outcome for you, whichever option you chose, which would you choose? And if you knew it would be a bad outcome, whichever option you chose, which would you choose? These are the questions that get people to be able to answer their own questions, because they know more than you do as you want to give them the advice about what they should do. They know more about what they should do than you do as their guide or mentor.
That's fantastic. I love that. And it's also, it gives the responsibility, and I guess the accountability, responsibility, and the blame or the praise to that person as well. Because if you are simply the one who you've told them something and they do it, then if it goes wrong, then you're the person to blame, aren't you? I just did what Stephanie told me to do. I just did. In fact, that brings us onto a nice little segue, which is obviously with Rent to Rent to Success. For those people who don't know, Rent to Rent Success is an online course which teaches people how to really get their first deal and future deals using the Rent to Rent method. Would that be a good summation? Okay. So in that course, obviously, I've been a student of that course, a successful student of that course. And what type of pressure do you feel for your students to be successful? Because it ties into what we're saying about it must weigh on you when people are doing the course and you want them to succeed. But just with anything, I guess everyone's not gonna, well, no, I shouldn't say that. Maybe most people can. But how do you feel about that? How do you separate yourself from the outcomes that your students are going to get or not get?
It's a great question, and it's a bit like giving people advice, which I'm very bad for, so although I'm talking about being an empathetic listener, I'm trying not to, as much give people advice unless it's specifically called for in limited situations. But I think it's staying in your own, we each have responsibility for our own thoughts and our own actions. So if I try to take on responsibility for your thoughts and your actions, then, as you said, that is going to weigh on me and drag me down. So I have to know that I deliver the best that I can.
Yes.
To enable what I want to happen. So the best teachings, the best mentorings, show up 100% to the coaching sessions, help people get past their own BS, which we all have. I have a coach to show me mine. I know that you have coaches. And anybody who's growth oriented and moving forward is having a coach. Oprah, Lisa Nichols told me she had a meeting with Oprah and she asked Oprah how many coaches she has. Not did she have a coach. And Oprah said she had 4 and Lisa only had 2 at the time. And Lisa went straight back and got another 2 coaches.
I love it.
You would think, wouldn't you, that when people are so successful, or many people might think, you know, the more successful you are, the less you need to have a coach. But actually, the more successful you are, the more you're doing, the more you need to have a coach. Whenever you're growing, whenever you're pushing forward, your mind is telling you to get back in the cave, stay in the cave.
Wow.
You're putting us at risk again. We're going to die.
Yeah. Wow.
And so to grow, you need a coach. And you always need to be stretching your vision of who you are. And this is something that I've been bumping up against a little bit lately, Luke.
Guys, thank you so much for listening to the episode so far. It's me, Luke, obviously. Just a quick one to say this episode is sponsored by me. So listen, if you want any help with your property, if you want any advice, shoot me an email, luke@lukewhyte.com. That's LUKE@LUKEWHYTE.com. We can get it cracking. And that's about it, really. On with the show. Peace.
When I first went into business, I didn't see myself as a business person, a property person, etc. But I've grown into that. I've grown into that. I that is part of my vision of myself now. I can see that I am. But a few things have happened recently, and some of them are about physical things. So I'll just explain quickly. I may have mentioned on the podcast, but we've been having all these conversations with our accountants and with tax advisors about how to structure the different companies that we have and how to tax efficiently take money from the pension, or how to set it up so that inheritance wise, the properties that we own can pass on in a charitable trust. So all of these sort of conversations, I often come out of the meeting and think, who is this person? What is going on? Who am I? Where am I? What's going on? Because I used to stand in the supermarket with a calculator, because it was before the days of smartphone, and try and add up, because the prices would always be changing. They would change the location of the food and the prices. And I had to make sure that I would have enough money when I got to the till. And my worst idea of nightmare was to get to the till and not have enough, because I would feel like everybody knew I didn't have enough money. And it wasn't just that I forgot my purse, that I just didn't have enough. And it just boggles my mind. And Nicky had a car, and my sister, that's 21 years old. And recently, just last week, she got rid of the car and got a new Tesla through the business. It had to be an electric Model
Love
S.
that. Hey, Nicky, yeah? Is that you, Nicky?
And the previous car she had it for 17 years. She had, the car itself was 21 years old. It was a Mercedes. It looked like it looked like it was 70 years old, not 17. But it was still running. And Nicky loved the car, so I can't say too much. But I've never thought of myself as a car person. I currently drive a Nissan Juke, so a very ordinary car. And now I'm looking to buy a car through the business as well, also electric. And so I'm looking at a Porsche Taycan. And when I'm looking at the car, I'm just like, yeah, but what would I be driving?
Wow.
Would that be my car?
Wow.
And it just, again, it just, I need to work on myself, because I really feel that's not me. That's not who I am. That's not for me. So
Wow.
it's a constant thing.
Yeah, so it's this constant journey of, I think some really great things there. Of one, having coaches all the time. They will just help you, whatever level you get to, coaches are there to get you to the next level. And then also constantly working on that mindset and constantly reflecting on what do I think about myself. It's so interesting. It's so interesting because even as I've taken this journey into property, and really it's been about 4 years for me, 4 or 5 years really. And obviously accelerated only a couple of years ago when I did the course, when I did Rent to Rent Success. And I've always been, I consider myself a very confident person. And I like people. Whatever I've done has always been with people. But literally, yeah, sometimes you go into certain spaces and it's just that sometimes that second thought of, what are they thinking of me here? What are they thinking? And it's just interesting. And so I just love that, and I find it actually reassuring that it's not just something that, it's something that you have to constantly work on as you progress. And I think that's like really helpful, because otherwise some people could get disheartened, like, okay, when I get this, then I'll feel confident. Okay, when I get to this level, then I'll feel like I belong here. But actually, it's just part of that growth journey, that growth mindset.
I think both are true. So when you get to that level, you will feel different, more confident. There will be lots of pluses about it, but there's also going to be lots of negatives.
Fine. Mm-hmm.
So at every level, you still have a human brain, and you still have the human experience. And the human experience is your brain will talk shit to you.
Facts. Yeah.
And you've got to train it.
Yeah.
And you can train it to be better behaved, to be more positive, but you will never entirely get rid of that, because that is a safety preservation feature of your brain that is always looking out for things that can go wrong to keep you safe. And trying to keep you in your place so you don't do crazy shit and end up dead.
Yeah, no, that's makes sense. Fabulous. So I think the most important question probably on people's lips is, what is your net worth? Only joking. Only joking. I wanted to talk about, so you and Nicky are co-founders, business partners. And what I see, and I'd love for you to correct me if I'm wrong, is that I see like a clear division of labor almost. I see Stephanie as the face of the brand, kind of the marketer. You're both extremely personable people, but you have taken, I feel, correct me if I'm wrong, that you've taken that role. And then Nicky has taken the role almost more behind the scenes, although she's still comfortable in front of the scenes as well, but behind the scenes and maybe processes, systems driven. Am I correct in that assumption? And was that, if I am right, is that an intentional choice that happened, or is it just naturally how it organically arrived at that place?
Yeah, it is a division of labor. It's weird because actually I was shy as well, but I just took that on and I did that, and I always knew that I was going to do that. I have the vision and the creation, and in a way I'm less talented in the terms of the details of like contracts or a business and stuff like that. I can't read these long documents. I'm the big picture. So I will scan over it and say, what about this? What about that? And when it comes to accounts, I can look at the figures and say, oh, but why can't we do this or that? So I can interpret it at a high level, but I don't ask me to be doing line by line. All of that. So Nicky oversees the bookkeeper. So it was intentional to a point. When I first started the business, I'd read that book, The E-Myth, about setting up your business and dividing up the job titles that you would have in a bigger business. Who was going to have all the titles? Because at the beginning, there were just two of us to split all the titles. And I was definitely the brand, the marketing, and Nicky was the, so I'm the MD, marketing director, and Nicky's the FD, the financial director. And we often say, oh, what's the financial director doing? I think the finance director, or what's the marketing director should be doing? The marketing director should be doing this or that or whatever.
Love it.
But yeah.
So what's the key to a successful partnership then? What's the key to, is because it's worked for, how long have you both been in business together now?
Yeah, 6 years.
6 years.
The key to a successful partnership is a few things. One is understanding people are people. People are humans, because I think sometimes we just expect other people to be so perfect.
Yeah.
They should never do anything stupid. They should never be irrational. They should never be angry. They should never be tired. They should always be perfect. And it's not like that. So one of the rules that we had towards the beginning was what I would notice would, if I said something ratty to Nicky, why she done so and so, or this was unreasonable, and I think that blah, 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 and she would come back in an attacking manner, and then it would turn into an argument. So the rule that we brought in was, if somebody comes to you angry, don't be angry back. Because in that moment, that person's angry. So you're not angry yet.
No, you're not. Yeah.
So don't be angry back, because then that person's going to realize, oh, I'm trying to be angry with this person. They're not even being angry back. Oh, yeah, I'm just tired. Or,
yes.
it wasn't, she didn't do that deliberately. Yeah, she might have taken something or eaten something or moved something. It wasn't deliberately to upset me.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And just that one simple thing has really helped, because you always feel cared for by the other one in your weaker moments.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great tip. Great piece of advice there. And do you think that as your team has grown, what has been the keys to growing it in a effective way?
Yeah, it's one, I think, is just having that having the idea that you're looking after people, that you're always doing a win-win. Now, some people are there trying to ensure that you don't win.
Yeah.
That they win and you lose. So I'm not saying, when I say a win-win, I'm gonna come around to that, because we have had a few people like that. So we're trying to have a win-win with all of our team and the people we work with, contractors, everybody else.
Yes.
So there's two parts to it. One is the ethos and the idea about what we're trying to achieve. And the second is having a systems and a process. For our internal teams, we've got systems and processes, and they are developing those as we go along. And without those, everything would fall apart, because if one person left or was off sick or whatever, nobody would know what to do.
Yeah.
So those are integral. But I want to say a couple words on when people are trying to take the Michael, let's put it like that, to be polite. And we have had some cases where, for example, landlords who we've worked with, most of them have been amazing, don't get me wrong, but there have been one or two who, if you met them, you would think they were perfectly nice, very charming. You would never in a million years think that they would act like the way that they do. One of them, we really had done an amazing job for over many, many, many years. He'd had some issue with another, he had some of his properties were with another rent-to-rent provider, and they either weren't very good, or the things had overtaken them. Anyway, they'd left things in the right mess in terms of the paperworks and everything, and he wasn't getting the money he was supposed to be getting, etc., etc. So he asked us if we would take on these properties, which we did do, even though really it wasn't really amazing for us to do so, but to help him out, because we already had some of his properties, we said we would take these properties on and look after them, which we did do. But unfortunately, we decided to give back some of these properties because they were not in great locations.
Okay.
And he was very difficult to work with, or he became very difficult to work with. And we just thought, when you're in a relationship where you want to ensure everybody's having a win and somebody else wants to make sure you're having a loss, like, let me give you an example of one of the things. So we took these properties on more as a favor to him. He would be washing its face, but he wouldn't be making a huge profit.
Yes.
From our side. So we took on some broadband contracts. And when we gave the properties back, the broadband contract was still in position. So we said, oh, there we go. We'd have to pass the broadband properties back to you, and you'll have to take them over, because you know, within a certain period of time, I think it was 3 years, I can't remember the detail.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe it was a year, I can't remember, but there was still time left running on this contract.
Yes.
Do you know what he said? He said, I will shop around and see who's the best. Anyway, we went back and said, no, we've taken these properties on.
Yeah.
Because of you need to take back this broadband. But that's what I'm trying to say is people will be looking at, I win, you lose.
Yeah.
And in that situation, I think you do need to stand your ground. But over the years, we've just found a way of dealing with things where I used to get extremely emotional with all the little things that used to happen, tenants, this or whatever.
Yeah.
Hardly anything along those lines gets my goat now.
Wow.
Because you've got to be able to keep your own inner peace and not have other people like a puppet winding you up and putting you down.
Yeah. No, that's major. And I remember, I think it was in one of the coaching calls, the weekly calls, where Nicky spoke about the idea of you can have that low-lying anxiety that can, especially I think when you start in the business, where you're just like, sometimes even now I still get it, where I'm just waiting for my phone to ring. I'm just and dreading it ringing, because you know if a tenant's calling, it's probably going to be a problem, or if a landlord's calling, something has probably gone wrong. And so yeah, I get it. It's I don't know, it might just be through repetition that you get to the point where it's like setting those boundaries. For example, again, I learned it from your course, just the idea of having set times where they can contact you, making it very clear that here's what is an emergency: water, fire, basically. Anything else is not an emergency. And setting those kind of boundaries in place has been really interesting. And it's funny because sometimes they try to push back. Like one thing I did was I said, okay, any problem that you have, any maintenance issue. Well, the first thing I did was I made a maintenance account. So it was email your issues to maintenance. That was the first thing. They're like, what? Like, I just want to be able to call you and just, stress you out. And then the other thing was I said, any issue you have will be repaired by the next Thursday. It's like Thursday is the day I'll come around, or someone will come around, and any issue that has been mounted up during the week will be resolved on Thursday. And then there was a few messages like, well, what if something happens what if something happens on Tuesday? Like, and then someone will be there on the next Thursday. But I really think like it is, do you think there's anything other than repetition that can help you to get over that dread or that anxiety of, because some people even just watching this are going to be thinking, oh, renting properties and having tenants, they're already feeling stressed just from the thought of it. Is it just repetition that will help you think people get over that? Or do you think there's another way of shortcutting the system, shortcutting the journey?
There's always stress, right? Some people are stressed in their job. Some people are stressed because they're broke. Some people, it's just what reason? So you living the purpose of your life, whether that means making money on a temporary basis from property management or whatever, it's not going to be totally stress-free. Because if you already knew exactly how to do everything, you would already be doing it, or you would already have done it. So that's the first thing, because people think they're living a stress-free life. No, you're not.
No, you're not.
But the way to get over stress is just to let your thoughts, bring consciousness to your thoughts, and then tell yourself what to think. So, for example, what used to stress me out is I would think to myself things like, I remember that we've had a handful of tenants. In fact, it's fewer than 5, but one of them I still remember because it was very early doors.
Yeah.
She might have come up in the thing in the weekly calls, because it was etched on my mind, because I went to the property and she came like that to my face. She came right up to my nose almost and started shouting in my face.
No way.
And how I did not step back, I do not know. I was rooted to the spot.
Wow.
But my heart was racing, and I felt, I think I kept my cool. And then I just was able to speak calmly afterwards to her. about how she spoke to me, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But she's used to people being really freaked out by her.
Yeah.
In my head, I was freaked out, let me tell you. But what I realized after that was, if I told myself she was like that to me, she's trying to ruin my day.
Yeah.
She's doing things to me,
Yeah.
which is often what our brain tells us. Or it's because I did this, or it's because I did that. No, she's like that because that is how she relates to people. There's other people who would never be up screaming in someone's face to a virtual stranger, because you know, we don't know each other that well. It's not like we're in anything together. So it's like what we were talking about earlier. You're giving people their stuff back and you're not taking it on yourself.
Right.
And thinking, yeah, we're going to go through the process of eviction and everything's going to be okay, which it is.
Wow.
And I'm going to look back at this one day and laugh. And it's just to know that in your mind, I can handle this. Whatever it is, you can handle it, because there's other people in the world who've done it. So you can ask them. There's books on it. There's Google on it. There's somebody who can help you with it. And also you're resourceful and you can handle it. And so that's one of the freeing thoughts, that I know I can handle anything. And I know that if you breathe deeply and tell yourself positive thoughts, everything just feels much better.
Fantastic. We're landing the plane now. What would you just how much, I mean, you've hinted at it throughout the call, but just how much has property transformed your life, and just how much do you think property can transform the average person's life?
Yeah, it's been monumental. It's property and business, I think, two together, because in property you buy assets, you make money from them, but you give people homes, you refurbish things, you manage contractors, you deal with relationships. But any kind of business, you create something from nothing. There's magic in that, and it grows you as a person, it grows you financially. And because we're landing the plane, I'll come on to my 3 mantras, which is believe bigger, be bolder, be a game changer. And believe bigger is just believing that more is possible for you than you're currently experiencing. Be bolder is having the boldness and the courage to be able to go out there and be criticized, because you're now taking a different path, and people are saying, oh, well, he's changed since he's got in property. Well, you know, thank God you have, because you want to be somebody else, and this is what God intended for you. So be a game changer is about changing the game, being a leader in your own life, your family's life, your community, and in our world. And it's changed us in all of those ways, and we're very grateful, because we were just going through life without intention. And now we bring an intentionality to it that makes it so much more joyful.
Excellent. And I would agree with all of that. I think all the interactions I've had with you both, and with your course and with your content, I would definitely say intentionality is something that is clear throughout what you're doing, and a sense of purpose. And even we haven't even spoken about the is it one for one? Speak a bit about the charity angle that you've also attached to your business.
Yeah, buy one, give one.
Yeah.
So when people come into the business to be coached by us, we're also buying, at the moment there's a goat in Kenya, a family gets a goat in Kenya, but you can choose whichever one you want. And there's another idea called Pledge 1%. So if you're listening and you're thinking, oh, I don't give regularly to charity, the idea of pledging 1% means it can be 1% of your salary, 1% of your income, 1% of your profits. I mean, 1% of anything, and that's doable for most people, living in one of the rich countries in the world. And giving really enhances your capacity, because in the act of giving, there's so much joy in it, and there's so much abundance in it, and more comes to you.
Fabulous. Stephanie Taylor, how can our listeners get in touch with you, find out more about your Rent to Rent Success course, and just follow your journey? What's the best way for them to keep up with you?
Yeah, thanks, Luke. It's rent2rentsuccess.com, and there's a free masterclass and guides that you can get there. And also, if you're interested in coaching and how the power of your mind can change your life, we've also got blowupyourlife.com, so you can see me over there as well. And of course, I'm on all the platforms, Instagram and all the rest, at Rent2Rent Success.
Fabulous. Stephanie, thank you so much for your time. Keep being amazing, keep inspiring, and I look forward to crossing paths with you more in the future as we continue our property and our business journeys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Luke.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Property, Purpose and People. Did you know you can watch the podcast on YouTube? If you prefer to see that kind of thing, then search for Property, Purpose and People on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share with a friend. And if you are really from the Windrush generation or one of the descendants, make sure you rate and review this podcast. And I will see you on the next episode. Peace!